Hey, this is Dominique.
And this is Keely.
And you are listening to Booktrospective. First, there's a disclaimer. I am going to try to remove any background noise, but we like to be authentic and we record in Keely's bookstore, which is downtown in Muncie, and the Muncie Pride kind of festival is going on today, so they're jamming out back there. So I'm gonna try to edit that out, but if you do hear a little bit of it, just know I tried, and hey, it is what it is. This week we are going to be covering Beast
of Extraordinary Circumstance,
yes,
by Ruth Emmie Lang.
Yes, and I feel like I'm a lot more prepared, and I'm going to say that probably every episode. But before we jump into that, I just want to catch up. So how was your week, Keely?
My week has been getting increasingly better, especially since it's the weekend now. But I've had a pretty decent week. How about you?
It's been good. It's tiring. I had 3 days I had to be at the hospital at 5:30. So
yikes.
I hate getting up early. I really do. So that was good. I didn't go to sleep until, I don't know, like 2 yesterday. So I was up for like almost 22 hours. I don't know. I like to scroll on TikTok before I go to sleep. And so I'm like, I just need that time to decompress, but then I'm also exhausted. But it was a good week. I'm just sleepy. So that was pretty much it. Did anything interesting happen this week? I don't think so. Anything for you?
Not really.
No? Okay. Well, we are going to get into the book, so we're going to we always kind of start with just like a one word kind of thing. So if you could just put one word or describe this book in one word, what would you say?
I would definitely say cozy.
Oh, that's interesting. I wasn't thinking that. Oh, that's nice. Okay, we'll talk about why later, but that's interesting. I'm just going to say magical, and we'll see why. Just for a general summary, I'm actually going to start just reading what do you call that? What the like publishers post?
The blurb.
The blurb.
Yes.
Okay, there's a word for it. So that is what I'm going to start doing. It just says, born in a blizzard, orphan, and believed to be raised by wolves, Waylon Gray is someone who inspires endless curiosity in everyone he's ever met. People say that once Waylon wanders into your world, you'll wish he'd never leave. But what makes him different? How does he possess the ability to transform others' lives? How does he manage to find and create magic in the ordinary? This is the story of Waylon's journey, told from the perspective of those who knew him, loved him, or were bewildered by him along the way. Ruth Emmie Lang introduces us to a character who will live in readers' hearts long after the last page is turned. So I felt like that was easier than me just coming up with some summary. So I was like, I'll just take what they said because they've already summarized it pretty well. So the book is separated, and I'm going to try, and I edited out a lot last time, and I might edit this part out. I'm going to try not to say and like and so many times. I'm very hard on myself listening to myself talk. But the book is separated into interludes and books. Mm-hmm. So I believe I got all of them. I may or may not have. I will try to state them. We start out with an interlude, and it starts in Wildwood Forest, Oregon, 2017. The book time jumps around a little bit too. So we're in Wildwood Forest, Oregon, 2017, and we are introduced to a character named Rourke. That's hard to say. Rourke. He's a kid, and he's basically with a group of, I guess what he would consider his friends. I don't know that I would consider them his friends. And they are daring him to go up to Waylon. We find out this is Waylon's house and touch it for 20 seconds. At this point in time, they introduce Waylon to us as Old Man Spider. And Rourke is like, he never turns down a dare, but he's doing this to impress a girl. Rudy or Ruby? I think it's Ruby.
I think so.
This house it's scary. It's decrepit. It's a spider's house. And he notices that there's some birds on the roof and they have strange behavior. And he basically, as he's trying to go up and do his dare, he gets trapped in some spider silk. And we see Waylon for the first time. He's older. He's got tattered clothes. The kids were believing that he was going to be half spider, hence why they called him Old Man Spider. He's got a salt and pepper beard, and it's like covered in food flakes. He's not well put together at all. Rourke believes he's like a villain who traps animals and eats them. Allegedly, that's the story. Waylon tells him that he has spider friends and they're actually working to fix the roof because that's, I guess he just decided to live here, and the spiders told him they could fix the hole in the roof, and he told the birds not to land on the roof because obviously it needs work, but they still do. And so that's explaining the weird behavior that we see these birds. Waylon pulls out this like book of names because he is looking to meet somebody with every name that exists, and he's never met anyone with his name, and Rourke was the first person he met with that name. So he puts that name in his book, and then we basically kind of transition into book 1, which is The Wolf Boy, and we are going to be in Timber Hills, Michigan, 1979. So we're going back a bit. We are introduced to Mary Penlore, and it is her 11th birthday. And she lives with her dad. He is a butcher. And I will just say that the dad is not, well, he has a speech impediment, and he really doesn't know how to emotionally connect with anyone, but especially his daughter, because he can't get out what he wants to say. And so a lot of times, instead of trying to, he just, the bare minimum gets out.
Yeah.
And he has good intentions, and we get his perspective, but a lot of times he just can't get it out, and so no one really understands that. And so we find out that she's living with her dad, and her mom died last year or a year ago from a stroke. He sends Mary, which I am judging his parenting a little bit, he sends Mary to deliver this super large meat order up north into this forest. All he has is a postcard with the name W, just a W for the name on it. Mary believes this is a prank because she's just going and going. She doesn't see anything. She finds a dead animal, and then she finds a campsite, and then she finds wolves. And the wolf is growling at her, and then all of a sudden we are introduced to Waylon again as a boy. Waylon is actually what the W stands for on the postcard, and he goes up to the wolf and he calls her Ma, and he introduces himself to Mary. He tells Mary that, you know, his real mom, or his real parents are dead, and he lives with this wolf pack. He tells Mary that her name is a good name, and again, we kind of connect already with the book of names that he's keeping and his like fascination with names. And he thinks that, he talks about his name, and he thinks his name will look good on a business card, which will come back later in the book. And he finds out that it's Mary's birthday, and he asks her to stay after she delivers all of this meat. Obviously, they're eating the meat. He's living with the wolf pack, and he has been living with them. He eats like them. He tells her that his parents died in a snowstorm car accident, and he ran away, essentially like the state came to take him away, and he didn't want to go. His parents had an emergency money stash, and that's what he's using to buy this food now, because there's no, they run off the deer or something like that. Whatever they normally would be hunting the wolves, they've run off that the hunters have, and so they don't really have anything to hunt for.
And to add in, they don't want to hunt the local livestock because they know that the farmers will come after him and the wolves. Right. So he's using this money that he's had. I actually don't know. Does it say how long he's been with them? I don't think it does. Yeah, I don't really have an idea. Well, she's 11. Are they about the same age? Because he was like 5-ish. So has he been with them all this time? I guess that's one thing, and we'll talk about that. That's one thing about the book that one of like my critiques is like the time thing kind of throws me a little bit. So we kind of flash back to the dad, and I do have his name. What is his name? Nelson Penlore is his name. And we flash back. So again, it's Mary's birthday. So he shuts down early for the day because Waylon's bought all his food. He doesn't have anything. Actually, one of the like townspeople is mad because he doesn't have anything left. So he goes to fish, and he's like, I'm going to cook it for Mary. She doesn't even come home until 9 o'clock. And she's like, I already ate. She's surprised he even did anything because, again, he doesn't really know how to connect with her. And he doesn't really know how to say anything about her coming home late. And she kind of takes it as like he doesn't care anyways. Waylon continues to buy out the dad's meat. Mary keeps going up there and spending time with him. And then this basically leads to Waylon runs out of money. And he's like, we're going to have to leave because we have to go somewhere where we can hunt. And Mary decides to run away with him. One Sunday, Mary doesn't come home, and the dad does start a search, and kind of like I said, the police are looking at him like he's crazy, because why were you letting your daughter go deliver to this unnamed person and was gone like
entire days when she would go.
With very vague directions.
Yeah, no questions asked. I mean, it's the 70s. There were a lot of serial killers in that time if this was real. So I don't know. So the police are kind of like, I mean, yeah, dude, why did you should have been more proactive. But essentially that's what they're kind of saying to him, and they pretty much think he's crazy. The dad does kind of find the old campsite and finds the cake pan that she had at one of the visits, or he knows that she was there at some point in time. Mary is not, like, did not think this through. She is not used to the wild. For example, like, when they bathe or get wet, Waylon just walks around naked because he's one with the wolves, and she's walking in her wet clothes, and he's like, why don't you just be naked? And she's like, no. And they're hunting. She feels bad about killing rabbits. She definitely did not think this through, but she does like Waylon, and she likes the freedom of not being with her dad, which I will say, I mean, she had a lot of freedom with the dad.
Right.
So,
right.
and a bed and a bathroom and lots of things. So that's so weird. When I think about this book, it seems like it's like the 1800s or something, and I'm like, it's 1979. So I have to look back at my notes. But yeah, so she had a lot of freedom to me. But while she's with them, she does teach Waylon to read To Kill a Mockingbird. He does tell her, like, he was in school. Again, it seems like to, like, kindergarten.
Yeah.
So he could write the W, probably knows, like, his basic letters, but he doesn't really know how to read and write to the full extent, not to the age he is now. Mary is with them for about 3.5 weeks, and they end up on a farm, and Ma ends up killed by a farmer because Waylon goes into this farm, even though they said they were trying not to do that, and he tries to hunt on this farm, and Ma gets shot and killed. And at that point, the police are called, and Mary gets returned home, and Waylon gets taken into custody. At that point, we are going to transition into book 2. We are going to, book 2 is called Rainmaker, and we are going to Paris, Oklahoma, and it is 1980. Waylon is placed with the Kramer family. We have Pastor Kramer. I don't know if we ever get the mom's name.
I don't think so.
I don't think we ever get the mom's name. She's not remarkable. And we have four daughters. Four daughters. Lydia. Is there 4 or 5? There's 5. The 4 are in the beauty thing.
Yes.
Okay, so we have mom, dad, and 5 kids, 5 girls. Lydia's the youngest. Yes, and she's the main daughter that we care about. Essentially, there's no boys, obviously, so Pastor Kramer also always kind of wanted a son. He does not tell the mom about this, and she's not happy when she does find out about having Waylon, just because he's not the picture of perfection. If you can think about, honestly, it gives me 50 vibes. That's so funny. When I think about this book, the times in my head do not match up with this timeline. Lydia's very excited, though. She does not fit in with her sisters. We open this book with her talking about her mom had 4 pretty daughters, and she's not one of them. And all of they posted in the paper about how pretty all the girls were. Obviously, she's not one of them. Her oldest sister, Christine, is that her name? I think that's her name. She has pageant crowns, and that is not her. She's basically pudgy, essentially. The mom picks on her, doesn't want her to eat. It's that whole idea. You guys know what I'm talking about. Her mom basically fat shames her. And so her dad has tried to treat her like the son he always wanted, but she's also not good at sports. They do have a better relationship, but she's not a substitute for a boy, which not to say a boy would be good at sports either, but there's that. So Waylon basically arrives. He has no shoes, no clothes, and all he has is that To Kill a Mockingbird book that he got from Mary. They go to essentially a McDonald's, or is it McDonald's? Yeah, it's actually McDonald's. And he sits cross-legged on the floor, and he eats only the meat out of his burger because that's all he's been eating. When they get to the house, again, the mom's disgusted. She puts him in all white clothing because she's like, this will teach him to have manners. Try to force it on him. And he immediately gets a cherry pie and spills it all over himself. And of course, she's pissed about it. The mom has to turn her sewing room into his room. Again, just something else that she's not happy about. And that happens to be the room next to Lydia. And she begins to hear animal noises at night, which we already know that he was living with wolves. We've seen in the beginning that he had the spiders, he had the birds, so we can pretty much put together that he's one with nature. And Lydia tells Waylon that the book that he has is actually a banned book. That's also why. I don't know if they banned books in the 50s, but I just get old-timey vibes. Waylon is accused at one point of having fleas, and that embarrasses the mom. She's all about image, which is why her and Lydia are not getting along either. And he gets very angry, and Lydia notices a really strong storm that just appears out of nowhere. We also meet around this time Waylon's teacher. Her name is Meg, and she later on becomes attached to him, but we kind of get her story. Meg is in her 40s. She's married. We learn very quickly that it's not necessarily a happy marriage. It wasn't unhappy, but Meg wants children, and she basically denied herself of that because she was already older when she got married, and not that they couldn't adopt, but the husband never wanted kids. Yeah. And so Meg is... First, she's annoyed with Waylon because he's sitting cross-legged on the desk. She doesn't understand why he's like that. She goes to the principal, and he's like, I thought you could tolerate... She basically kind of got a promotion, but more like it's like when you get a promotion but no extra pay kind of thing. That's what it seems like to me.
A whole bunch of extra work.
Yeah. It was like, oh, you should be proud of more work with less pay.
Oh, and the thing that got me with that is, so she has all this extra stuff stacked on her plate. And she was talking to her husband about, I think she's teaching science now too, and that's not something that she normally would do. And he was like, but no D word. And I'm like, what? And she's like, yeah, no dinosaurs. We can't mention dinosaurs.
I forgot about that. Again, it gives me old-timey vibe. This is so non-progressive in the thinking. I think it's almost like the class is almost like it reminds me of like a GED class, but obviously Waylon's not that old. I don't know how old Waylon is. I feel like we don't get ages.
Yeah, that's something that throughout the book that I was kind of like,
how old are you?
They don't go along with what the ages of...
Yeah. I mean, we know that Mary was 11. I'm assuming they were close in age and he was older maybe. But we still don't know. But it felt like, that's kind of what she said. It was more like a GED, like a catch-up kind of class. Meg ends up kind of getting attached to Waylon through teaching him. And there's one point in time where she's trying to teach about photosynthesis, and she has a very pathetic plant that is half dead. And Waylon hangs behind, and all of a sudden this plant is vibrant and back to life. And she's like, I know that this plant was dying, so that catches her attention. Then there is something with pigs in the class. Waylon releases these pigs in the class, and they have to wrangle all these pigs, Meg and Waylon. And then we meet Merlin, which is a special pig that has kind of like a horn, and that becomes Waylon's pig. Does Meg take him home? Is that what prompts the argument with her and her husband?
Yes. So, yeah Meg took Waylon and the pigs home, but then I think
she was feeding with a bottle.
Yeah, she took Meg and Waylon home or something. All of a sudden they weren't there.
Yes.
But her husband came home and she was feeding the pig with a bottle.
And he's like, we've talked about this. We've had this conversation. And essentially they're getting a divorce. I think it was needed, but that was extreme.
Yeah, his ultimatum was either me, if you want a kid, then we need a divorce, pretty much.
Yeah, and so divorce it was. And so Meg ends up reaching out to Pastor Kramer, and they have a carriage house in the back of their house, and so she ends up moving into there. So Meg, Waylon, and Lydia all start to get very close. They're out there doing Waylon can't really do his homework out there because his teacher's out there, but they kind of do their homework out there, and Meg quizzes Lydia. Waylon's just out there doing his homework without any feedback because it wouldn't be fair. But Waylon is, he catches on very quickly. He is very bright. Smart. He's very smart. And this pretty much goes on. Oh, and don't forget Merlin. Merlin's out there as well. They're hiding the pig from the mom because she
would be livid.
And so this goes on until around Christmas. Lydia has a friend named June. June steals Lydia's sister's crown.
Caroline?
It's something with a C. She's so unimportant. June steals the crown, and Lydia knows that this is going to be an issue. Of course, when the mom realizes that this crown is stolen, they blame Waylon. And he again gets very angry, and on Christmas, a tornado comes out of nowhere. It's not tornado season. They are trying to bunker down, and Waylon and Merlin face down this tornado, and it goes away. And it gets recorded. And they know, Pastor Kramer knows that, one, Waylon cannot stay here just in general. Two, he knows if he stays that his marriage is not going to survive. So Meg is like, I'm going to take Waylon. She can't live in the carriage house forever. and they are going to leave. Lydia's very upset, but that's pretty much the end of the second book. So we are going to jump to another interlude. So the interludes are basically when we go back to present day with adult Waylon. So we go back to Wildwood Forest. It's 2017 again, and Roark is hanging out with Waylon. Now they're buds. Roark is talking to Waylon about animals that came to class, and this is going to be a hint a little bit later. So someone brings animals to class, and Roark is trying to help Waylon fix the roof because the spiders obviously haven't done it yet. Roark notices that the floor isn't wet, even though that there's been rain recently. So there's all these context clues going on about just unusual things with Waylon. And also, Roark is getting a picture with a wolf because he wants to show his friends that he faces down a wolf. So he steals his mom's camera. She's not happy about it later. She's like, "You're grounded." He was grounded for 2 weeks because he wasn't in any danger, but he pretends to his friends that he faced off with this scary wolf. We know that Waylon was there and he wasn't in any danger. Very short interlude. We jump to book 3. Book 3 is Stormseeker, and we are in Little Turtle, Mississippi. It is now 1997, so we jump 17 years. So at this point, we actually are introduced to a new character. His name is Bobby. This was also another hard part for me in the book. It's the time, and it's constantly new characters. It's every time I got comfortable, I was like, dang, it's somebody new. So we meet Bobby. This is probably this might be my favorite section of the book. Yeah, because he's funny to me. So we meet Bobby. He's the mayor of Little Turtle, and everyone in his family, like the dad and the grandfather, they've been the mayor, but Bobby is not good at this. Bobby's dad is still alive. He just had a stroke, and so he had to step down preemptively, and Bobby was thrusted into this. Bobby is failing at adulting. He hooked up with a waitress and has a baby on the way. He's just not in a good place in his life. So there's some political thing going on and some kind of bill trying to get passed, but there's also a hurricane coming, and they need a plan for this levee to prevent serious hurricane damage. So Bobby's plan that we find out is Waylon. Bobby has seen a video of Waylon and the hurricane with Merlin, and he's like, that's who I'm going to reach out to. He knows that the council will not support this, so he's trying to be sneaky about it, but we'll kind of come back to that. In the meantime, Waylon has lived with Meg up until she passes away. Yeah. So she raised him, and so he is brought to the area by Bobby. He still has Merlin. And we also are reintroduced to Mary Penlore. She grew up and she really wanted to work with wolves because she still is connected to the whole 3.5 weeks she spent with Waylon and the wolves, but she didn't get accepted to that, so she is studying worms. Yeah.
What is it, glassworms?
Glassworms. She digs in mud a lot. It sounds very unpleasant. So she's dating. It does not sound like love at first sight. What did she say? The guy was talked all about himself. He was, I don't know. It sounds like a horrible situation. I don't know why you were dating him. And her and Waylon, essentially, they run into each other. They reunite. Waylon finds out that Bobby is essentially using him. Bobby gets exposed. He pays Waylon $2,000 to find a way to stop this hurricane. The council finds out. They're like, you're an idiot, Bobby. Poor Bobby. I like him. I don't know.
He didn't even want the job to begin with.
No.
I found the funniest part, I think, about his story was when he was talking about how he won, the ballot, but he was the only person on the ballot.
Yeah, no one ran.
He only had 29 votes.
Yeah, it's just one of those small towns. We know that Bobby, whatever his last name is going to be the mayor. There's not, that's just what it is. It's one of those small town things. And I like his character, but, so he's like, I'm going to be the laughing stock of the town. The hurricane's coming, and Mary and her boyfriend break up because he's like, I'm leaving, there's a hurricane. She's like, I'm going to stay with Waylon. Waylon does find out that, I don't know. So Bobby does believe in Waylon, but also it's magic, essentially. How did you stop a tornado? So he believes in him, but he doesn't. What am I believing in? So essentially, Waylon faces off this hurricane the same way that he did the tornado, and he does stop it, but he gets struck by lightning. Mary is there on the beach because, oh my gosh, Mary, what are you doing? She has no perception of safety.
Yeah.
Whatsoever.
Mary pretty much throws all caution to the wind.
Yes. She's crazy. You could have waited in the house or something.
Right.
And during this hurricane, they're not even dating. His baby mama goes into labor. He has to drive her to the hospital. It all works out. So Bobby, everyone's like, oh, he saved the day. He's not the laughingstock. He remains mayor. And Mary goes to the hospital and is like, what did you do, Waylon? How did you do that? And you got shocked by lightning. And she basically confronts him and wants him to tell her how does he do it. Which I don't believe Waylon knows what he's capable of. I don't know. I don't think we ever get that answer.
Yeah, I think that he knows, like, he has some kind of connection.
Yeah.
But doesn't necessarily know, like...
how it works.
Because I think it's connected to his emotion.
It is.
So, and I think when he was little, the whole Merlin thing.
Yes.
That he kind of pushed it off on Merlin, as being the magic one. And he still does kind of throughout this story.
Yeah.
But I think he's beginning to realize that
it's him.
Yeah.
It's him. And I didn't put this in my notes, so I'm not sure exactly at what point we discover this or that he says this. But essentially, going back to the beginning, again, Waylon's parents died in a snowstorm car accident, and it was caused by him because he was like a newborn baby. And so the babies are emotional. He didn't do it on purpose, but so that is something we're going to see come up again as the story keeps unfolding, him dealing with his emotions. This is the end of book 3. We're going to go into book 4, where we kind of continue with Waylon and Mary, and then we get some new characters. So book 4, I did not put the date down. It's the Forest Familiar, though, but it's like a right into the next year, so we're probably still like 1998 or something. So we are actually introduced to Dwayne. He is a cattle raiser, and I didn't put the location either. It's like, where are they?
Was it
Minnesota or something? It's something up north or northwest. So Dwayne is a cattle raiser. He's got a pregnant cow, and the cow has the baby, and the calf gets killed by the wolf. The cow's okay, but the calf gets killed. So he's got a vendetta with wolves. Mary realizes that she's fallen for Waylon. She has feelings, which, Mary girl, we knew that. We've known that since you were 11. And they move in together, and she also, right before the hurricane, found out that she got accepted into the wolf research program out there, so that's why they are in this area. And Waylon is finally getting a job. So he finally gets that business card. So if you remember when in the very beginning, he's like, oh, I think Waylon will look good on a business card. He finally gets his business card, and he goes to work with Dwayne for a company that fells trees. So they basically are cutting down this forest. And unfortunately for Dwayne and his company, they will cut down trees, and every day the trees will be back. And it gets worse, like every day.
Yeah.
And I don't remember the other guys' names because it's not important, but they are like, it's Waylon. It's this guy. And like he was like even growing more trees than there were. And so Waylon ends up getting fired. Of course, again, that sets off his emotions. And
Dwayne didn't really even want to fire him
no.
to begin with. Dwayne was actually starting to really like Waylon.
Yeah, they invited him out that time. They invited him out. During this time, Mary's kind of out of her section. I'm not talking about it as much because it was kind of boring to me. Mary's like working with the wolves. There's some guy there that doesn't think she deserves to be there because he doesn't believe her story about living with Waylon and the wolves.
And they call her Lobo, which is Spanish.
Okay.
Wolf.
Okay, because I was like, I'm glad that you know. Yeah, Dwayne like didn't want to get rid of him, but he's pressured by the other guy. And so they do fire him, and did they like ask him if he's doing it?
Yeah.
And he doesn't really answer him.
And he's like, no, it wasn't me. I didn't do that.
Yeah, so they like fire him. So this like snowstorm comes out of nowhere. And at the exact same time, Mary, again, she has no idea of like self-preservation. She decides to go up to the most aggressive wolf because the guy there that doesn't like her at the wolf place, he lost his arm, his fingers to this alpha female wolf. And so she goes up to the same wolf, and she thinks like, okay,
he's injured.
Yes, and she's like, okay, I'm approaching like gently. And she gets semi-attacked. And so then she's like walking off. She passes out. Waylon has triggered this snowstorm. So she's getting like covered by snow. Waylon's gone home. He's decided he's going to cut out. Dwayne happens to come across Mary almost completely covered in snow. He finds her, takes her home, and she's found that Waylon has left. He leaves her a note. Does he leave her a note?
Yes.
and what, I can't remember what it said.
I can't remember.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, he was like, he can't be around. Like, he's basically down on himself. And he leaves Merlin with her, and she asks Dwayne she tracks the wolves, because she knows that's where he's going. And she is like, can you take me to the wolves? So she goes, and she doesn't even say anything to him, and she sees him, and she just knows that
he's in his element.
Yep, and that's where he needs to be. And that's where we leave them at the end of book 4. So then book 5, we are, this book is titled Firefly Keeper. We are in Fairweather, Pennsylvania, and it is 2011. So big jump. We're back in present day times. Again, it never seems like it. And we are going back to Lydia. I really like Lydia too. I Lydia.
I
and
really like Lydia.
Yeah, she's my other favorite. Lydia is all grown up now because it's been 30 years. It was like 70. No, it wasn't 79. It was 80. I mean, basically 79. So yeah. And so she's married. Her husband's name is Bill. She has 2 kids, 2 boys, Micah and Clay. They live on a farm. And she also has bees. Waylon shows up, and it causes the bees to make tons and tons of honey that she doesn't even know what to do with. Her younger son is, I don't want to say normal and abnormal, but her younger son is like very average, normal. Like he plays sports, the kids like him. Her older son is socially awkward, and so when he's the one who actually finds Waylon, he wasn't ever supposed to be in the bee house. Know what they call him?
Bee yard,
something like that. But he goes out there and he sees Waylon in there like passed out, and he thinks he's dead. And does he get attacked by the bees?
Yeah.
He gets attacked by the bees, and Waylon stops it. And he's like, you're going to teach me magic. You're magic. You're going to teach me magic. Mm-hmm. And Waylon's like, I don't do magic or whatever. So also during this time, the entire town does not have power except for Lydia. They're coming to her house like, why do you have power? We essentially find out that Waylon is burying jars of
firefly honey or something.
Yeah.
Is what he called it. He said it looks like honey at first, but then it turns into,
it's like a light.
Light.
Yeah. My imagination was definitely failing me on this part. I really was like trying. I mean, I have it like in my mind, but I don't know if that's correct. So he's working with Micah on magic, essentially, and they're doing that. And then Waylon basically, he figures out what he can do to restore the power to the town. And so he blows up, what is it that he blows up? A water tower?
A windmill.
A windmill. And Lydia is so mad because he's like, he goes out there, he's going to blow this thing up. Lydia's like, what is going on? She thinks he dies. And he blows this thing up. And he's fine, because he always is.
They found him in a tree.
Yep. And then he runs off again. And that's kind of what Lydia says, is that Waylon comes and goes like the wind, essentially. But she does kind of get to keep, that's her brother. She's like, that is her brother. It seems like that's the only one of the siblings he ever had a relationship with. That's just kind of our check back in with Lydia. And so the last portion of this book, this is the 4th interlude. We go back to Wildwood Forest, back to 2017. And I would really like to know how old Waylon is, because I'm like, okay. Yeah. So if 1979, I'm going to say he was like 14. So I'm going to do some math. Let's see, 2017 and 1979. 52. That seems like a good age.
Yeah.
He was probably in his 50s. Okay. So we're in Wildwood. We're back with Rourke, and I'm so horrible at saying that name. That is a hard name to say. And Waylon. And so Rourke is showing that picture of the wolf to his friends. He's still doing dares, but he's just like mesmerized with the whole thing with Waylon. And while he's out doing this weird dare where he has to put his hand in like is it an anthill?
Something like that.
Something like that. He's only supposed to do it for like a couple seconds. He's down there for like 2 minutes. They're like, hey, you good? And then he notices that he met basically like a raccoon that was a friend of Waylon's, and he notices that she's like running off going somewhere. So he decides to chase this raccoon, and it goes to a house, and he notices the lady that lives there is the lady that came to the school and brought the animals to the school.
Did he call her, like the wolf lady?
The wolf lady, because she did bring a wolf. And we find out that is Mary. So he goes to Waylon, and he's like, hey, or no, Waylon finds him there. Mm-hmm. And he's like, what are you doing? And he's like, did you know that she lived here the whole time? And Waylon's like, yes. So he's like, well, why aren't you talking to her, and Waylon's basically like, I don't have my life together. You know, essentially kind of like why he left in the first place, when he, like, his emotions, he doesn't feel worthy, the thing with his parents. And so Rourke spends like the next 2 weeks on his case. Every day he's like, you have to go, you have to go, you have to go, you have to go. He even like takes his dad's clothes and brings them.
And his razor.
Yes, to try to like fix him up. And so then he's like, you know what? I'm gonna go talk to Mary. And Waylon is like, he starts to get mad, and he's like, you better not. And so we transition into book 6, which is still in Wildwood Forest, still 2017, and this one is titled Old Man Spider. And so Rourke gets Waylon to go to Mary's, and he admits that he loved her, he always did, and they reunite and they stay together. And I think that's so cute. And then there is like is it considered epilogue? I don't even know what it was titled. Mm-hmm. Basically, Rourke hears like wolves howling, and he essentially puts together that it's probably Waylon. And that's kind of how our book ends off. So that's kind of, yeah. So it's a little like all over the place. It's cute. I like it.
I really liked it. It was definitely a cozy read.
Yes.
It wasn't like this big fantastical like story with a whole bunch of like world building. It was a very cozy fantasy.
Yes.
With a sprinkle of a love story. I thought it was so good.
So Keely has discussion for us.
Questions.
She's the brains of our operations, guys. I'm just the brawn. So I do the reviews. She's gonna lead us in discussion. So,
all right. So first off, did you cast any of these characters?
And I will say that I didn't, because I could not. I did for our other book, but I could not think. So I was curious as who you did, because my brain in this book, I could not think of anybody that I would put for any of these characters. I looked. I even was like in AI. Like maybe I could AI generate. Like in my mind, I can like Waylon, older Waylon. I could think of like this like really skinny guy, like scraggly beard, almost like a what was Dumbledore's brother's name? Like that's what I picture in my brain. Him. I should have fan casted him, but I cannot think like for fan casting. So I was curious as to what you had.
Yeah. So mine definitely, like, the ages are like kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
Because don't know how old
any of them are.
When,
no.
But and I didn't do like a young, middle age, old kind of thing. I just did
just one
character. And so mine is just, if they were younger, they'd look like a younger version of this character, so on. But for Waylon, I casted Milo Ventimiglia.
I think I know who that is.
Yeah, he's on This Is Us.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I can see it.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
And for Mary, I casted Zoe Deschanel.
She's cookie. I like it.
Lydia. I think Lydia was probably my favorite character. I loved Lydia. But I casted Dakota Fanning.
Oh yeah, I can see that. She gave me like kind of like tough girl vibes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So for Rourke, I casted Finn Wolfhard.
Okay. That's funny.
Meg, I casted Emilia Clarke.
Oh. Okay.
For Bobby.
That's what I'm curious about.
I didn't know exactly like what age Bobby was, so I struggled with that one a little bit. But I ultimately settled on Alex Pettyfer.
I thought that one up. Oh, okay. I can see it. That's funny. And I know we don't know the ages of anybody, so yeah, that makes it so hard.
And then for Micah, I casted Jeremy Ray Taylor. He played in the remake of the It movies.
Oh, okay.
And then the last one I casted, I didn't cast everybody, but I casted the majority of the, point of views that we had.
Yeah.
Dwayne, I
He is
casted.
funny.
Yeah, I like Dwayne too. I casted Jeffrey Dean Morgan.
I love him. He's he's like a rancher.
Yeah.
He's definitely a rancher. I like it. Yeah.
How's that vibe?
Yes, I could not think of anything. In my mind I visualize stuff, but then I was like, I cannot put that to thought. I don't know. So I'm glad you did.
Well, and throughout, these podcasts, we may have some repeats on the fan cast.
Oh, definitely
because
will.
I love Milo Ventimiglia, and so for almost everything I cast him. So
That's fine. That's fine.
But yeah, so moving on to another question. So the book is told almost entirely by those Waylon meets throughout his life. So what are your thoughts on that? Do you think, or do you wish we would have had more from Waylon's perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I think even just a Waylon book, like an end of life kind of thing maybe would have been good, because like I said, we don't really know what Waylon's thoughts are on the magic perspective. Do you feel like you understand it? Did he get a handle on it? And at the end, I feel like there were a lot of moving parts in this book, and it's not really ever cohesive. Mm-hmm. So I feel like that would have been a cohesive part for it.
Yeah, I really enjoyed how it was told, that it was told by people around Waylon, but I wish that we would have had a little more from his point of view, because I think we only have one chapter.
Yeah.
And it was, thinking back on it, a little confusing that Rourke was coming in and essentially Waylon was telling Rourke the story of his life, but we don't hear it from his side. We hear it from everybody else's side.
Yeah.
So we don't really get the same side that Rourke is getting.
Right.
But I really like that it was told from people around him, though, too. So.
Yeah, I like the characters. Mary's interesting. Yeah. But I do like most of the characters. Mm-hmm. They're fun.
Yeah, I think Lydia and Dwayne are probably my favorites, besides Waylon, of course.
Yeah.
But Lydia is definitely, I don't know, there is something about Lydia.
Yeah, no, she's fun. Yeah, she's up there for me, yeah.
So was there a character or a relationship between Waylon and another character that you wish we had more of in the story?
I mean, we got 2 chapters or 2 books with Lydia, so I think that's fair. I guess I would say Meg, just because there's such a big time gap and then Meg doesn't come back. So to see him growing up, and I don't know that he ever becomes acclimated, but what that looked like, what happened in those years, and just see what happened at the end of her life. Yeah. Was he what was that process with him? And because he's had a lot of death too. Yeah. So that would have been interesting. Yeah, because pretty much we leave off with Meg's story when they leave. Right. She just kind of summarizes, she died. I parented for 5 years and I died. Yeah. And why?
I would have liked to hear more about the connection between Meg and Waylon also. Yeah. Another one. Okay, so this is a long one, kind of. Anyways, so a central theme in this book is human connection. Most, if not all, of the people that Waylon encounters lack some sort of human connection that they are longing for. For Mary, she's missing her mother, and there's a void in her life that her father can't seem to or doesn't know how to fill, as we mentioned earlier. For Lydia, she's pretty much an outsider in her own family, can't live up to her mother's expectations or her sister's perfection, and she needs, someone who understands being an outsider, and that's Waylon. Meg longs for a child, as we talked about, and so on with the characters, and Waylon ultimately is that connection that they're longing for, fills that connection. So, that being said, Do you think that longing for connection with others is a universal and necessary thing for us to feel fulfilled?
I would say so. I think whatever connection is, whether it's platonic, romantic, I think you need something. I know there are people who feel like they don't need anybody, but I don't think that's true. We all need some. We need a lot of different relationships, so I definitely think that we do, and we just find it in different ways. So I would say that it's kind of a universal thing that we all kind of long for.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, otherwise we'll be practically, be raised by wolves.
Yeah, and even with that, I mean, he found it, and we see that in so many stories. Wolves are like a common thing. I feel like we see, like the Jungle Book and things like that, where like they have that almost human like connection.
Yeah.
Or I don't know where that thought comes from, but I've never seen wolves act like that. But yeah, so I think that's universal.
Yeah. And so, when looking through the reviews on Goodreads, I noticed that one of the biggest criticisms of this book is that the characters were not well developed. Do you agree or disagree with that?
I would agree, because that's probably one of my takeaways. I just felt like as soon as I was kind of getting like acquainted with it, it was like I jumped again, and it took me a bit to get into it, and then it was like as soon as I was getting comfy, it was like and then I gotta do it again. And so that I didn't like. I would almost like if there was less characters and we spent more time with some of them. So I would agree with that.
Yeah, I definitely wish that there was some more time spent with some of the characters. I think the one out of all of them that was more fleshed out than the rest would be Lydia. And I think that's part of the reason why I like her so much.
Even Mary, like we have the most time with Mary, and I feel like I still don't even know as much about Mary.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would agree with that.
So what would you rate the book?
I would give it a 3.5. I think like generally like it was a good read, like just for overall, but I would say like the jumps make it hard for me to just like really like connect with it. And then I feel like there was so much so much things trying to go on. More like it was a collection than like a solid novel. So that can make it confusing.
Yeah. Mine was a 4.5.
That's fine.
This was a reread for me. And I really like the cozy books. So it definitely was a cozy, kind of can cuddle up on the couch and, read it. And there's not much thinking to it.
Yeah, no.
So, yeah.
That's good. Okay. Well, so that was Beast of Extraordinary Circumstance by Ruth Emmie Lane. And any other final thoughts? I don't think so. So our next book is Final Girls by Riley Sager. And I think that is it for this one. Anything you got to say?
Nope, that's all for me.
All right. See you guys.
Bye.